Excellent.
Right, good to go.
Time is 7:03, September 14th, 2021. As a preliminary matter, my name is Justin McCullen. I'm the TMAC chairman. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So TMAC members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Switching between. One second here. Switching between. Okay. Anthony Delgazo.
Aye.
I see. Yes. Rain Hoyland. Lieutenant John McGrath.
Here.
Justin McCullen, present. Seth Bauer.
Here.
Rebecca Tarantino.
Here.
Donna Mullen.
Here.
And Suzanne Stein. You're on mute, so I didn't, but I see you. Can you, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And our staff, we have Daphne Collins.
Here.
And Bob Wilson.
Here.
And Tyler Gabrowski.
Here.
Excellent. And anticipated speakers on the agenda for this evening. I know Thomas Clancy, I did see him. He was trying to have some technical difficulties. Morgan Sammet, which I know he may or may not be here. Leslie Kerr. Yes. And Brenna Jones.
Here.
Excellent. Script. And we need to change the notification for the script. Second. I have three monitors, everything going on at once. Okay, so good evening. This open meeting of the Traffic Management Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely, consisted with originally Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, and subsequently extended by the Massachusetts State Legislature due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded, so the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. This meeting is a webinar, for this meeting, the TMAC is convening by Zoom app and posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Actually, all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you do broadcast may be captured by the recording. That could be pretty embarrassing. Meeting materials. All supporting materials that have been provided to the body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along according to the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We're now going to be turning to the item just after this on the first item on the agenda. After we do our formalities and minutes and some other housekeeping issues, we open the floor for speakers. You'll be given about 5 or so minutes. All members of the TMAC have read your petitions and are aware of your petitions. You may have specific questions and ask for follow-up, but certainly giving you the availability of 5 or so minutes to communicate your petition. After their remarks, I will go through and ask the town representatives of the TMAC their comments, their concerns, and after that, I'll ask for any comment from the remainder of the TMAC that may have comments or concerns or motions, etc. Please, furthermore, remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak it clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait till the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be taken and conducted by a roll call vote going through. So any questions, comments, or concerns with that statement? Without any further ado, for the minutes, approving the minutes, we did the roll call attendance from July 14th, 2021. Everyone has been given the minutes by Tyler. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any comments, concerns, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as entered.
I move to accept the minutes.
Mr. Bauer moves to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
Ms. Tarantino, have a second. Thank you. We'll go for a Daphne. Can you bring through a roll call vote for acceptance of the minutes?
Anthony Delgazo,
Aye.
Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCollum,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much, Daphne. So on the third item on the agenda, we have, first of all, I want to talk about our status report first, and then after the status report, we have the Charles River traffic study report out. So Bob, do you want to kind of lead that discussion?
Okay, I have a couple of things here, and if you're leaving the Charles River until after I go through the little bit of housekeeping, I can do that. First of all, we have some results from the traffic study that was performed out near Bell Lane and Pheasant Landing Road on Charles River Street. And the results are as follows. The traffic traveling westbound is 2,692 vehicles per day. Eastbound is 2,966 vehicles per day. The percent trucks, heavy trucks, would be 9.5%. And the speed, which is what her main concern was at the time, because she wanted a speed bump placed, was westbound at 39 miles per hour, 85% speed. And eastbound is 42 miles per hour, 85% speed. So they're going pretty quickly through there.
And is just refresh, is that a speed zone, or is that?
I did not see a formal speed zone out there, speed limit sign,
Sure.
unless I'm way back into Dover. It was
Sure,
like
and so
35, I think.
it probably would not be thickly settled. Would that, what would be the de facto speed limit from the Commonwealth on an unposted road in that area? What would that be?
I'm not sure of on that one. Lieutenant McGrath might have more of a say on that.
Yeah, that would still default to the 30 mile an hour.
It would still be considered
It would.
thickly settled? Okay.
I wasn't sure if
perfect.
it wasn't. Yeah.
I
Okay.
knew like there's like there's a small percentage of Needham that kind of falls out of that, but if it's considered that 30, then okay. So there definitely is an excessive.
Yeah.
There is speeding there on the 85th percentile.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And from, if I can continue briefly, from the June meeting, there's a couple of sign issues going on. Hopefully tonight, the selectmen are meeting to sign a regulation for a stop sign at the end of Oakland Ave at Highland Ave. Hopefully. And also the Mark Tree curve ahead sign with 25-mile speed tab has been installed as of about 3 weeks ago on that. Okay, a little bit more. Back to Charles River Street again. From the April meeting, we have the deer crossing signs have been installed as well. That was just about a month ago they were put in. And beyond that, I'm going to be getting ready to set up some more traffic counts for the Jarvis and Nardone area as a recount to the ones that were, so it's school is in session, and also some follow-up counts at the Falcon Street and Bond Street intersection. Again, after school is now that it's getting going, I'll be starting those in the next couple of weeks. And beyond that, it's the Charles River Street at South Street intersection. And I was hoping that Mr. Grappo would be here, but I don't see him present right now. So we could talk about this a little more. This is regarding the heavy truck issue at the corner of South and Charles River. What we have out there for a percentage of trucks is 4.4%, as mentioned from the July meeting, which is less than the 5% that the state says would warrant a heavy vehicle exclusion. There's other issues, but that's one of the issues, one of the first steps in trying to get a warrant for a heavy vehicle exclusion for a roadway. So I'm not sure. I mean, it is a little lower than,
So it wouldn't
The warrant
necessarily
would
meet
call
the
for-
warrants, it's below that warrant level.
yes, yeah. And again, I wish he's not here to help find out what he was looking for more particular than that. I really don't know.
Basically, when I spoke to him, I gave him the written results that you had announced in a prior meeting, and he just wanted a interpretation. I guess it wasn't quite understandable. So maybe I can point him towards a recording of this meeting.
Fine.
So I open up to any members of the committee with regards to anything that Bob has brought up. I note one thing that's of interest to me is we do now have a speed study or a traffic count study that shows that there's excessive speed in a certain area on Charles River near Grove.
Yes.
Yeah, Justin, this is Seth. I was going to ask about that too. And as a first step, is there a reason why that area doesn't have a posted speed limit? And I know lots of areas don't have posted speed limits, but given that the speeds are so excessive, would a first step in addressing it potentially be posting a speed limit sign? And is there any reason not to do that? Tony?
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman, in order to post those white, speed limit signs, the street would have to be speed zoned. That starts with the study of how fast cars are going, and then that posted speed, for example, my guess would be 40 miles per hour, would become the speed of the street. It most likely would be set at 40 miles per hour. Then if anybody was going faster than 40 miles per hour, that would be a ticketable offense.
Is there any mitigation that could be done now that there is a speed study to say that the 85th percentile is around 40 miles an hour? Is there some mitigation either through signage or markings that could in a way try to reduce the speed in that area, to then do another speed study to verify whether any mitigation has worked or not? So my understanding is that it opens up to there are certain things from markings to I'm not saying barriers but there's a whole toolbox full of available mitigation activities that could be performed to at least verify to see if traffic could be slowed or the speed could be slowed down. Can you fill in a little bit more about that? Or because my understanding is that I get what you're saying, but is there a way that we could circumvent that to not necessarily have to have a 40-mile-an-hour posting on Charles River Street?
So the typical way would be to install thickly settled advisory signs with 30-mile-per-hour speed tabs to inform the public that the area is thickly settled and the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. That would be one way. Another way would be to increase enforcement, police enforcement of the area, to try to encourage people to slow down. I know that there's a stretch on Charles River Street. I don't recall exactly where it is, where the prima facie speed is 40.
Mhm.
But I can describe that. It would be in an area where the houses are further apart than 200 feet from one another. So that would be a rural settled area.
Sure.
And if it's less than 200 feet apart, that would be a thickly settled.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's what I was asking at the beginning, to see if that area was the thickly settled. So, thank you, Tony, for that. Is there any other comment from the TMAC regarding this issue?
I have one in regards to the speed. If we're talking the stretch between the Dover line and, let's say, Locust, I agree with Anthony that Tony, sorry, just reading the name. That it's a unique stretch. I think what he's suggesting is if we try and push it, that you will see the speed go up to 40 miles an hour. I know from personal experience, just enforcing speed there. It's kind of one of those discretionary areas, because if you do pull people over for doing 40 miles an hour, you're going to be pulling over every single car. It's just the rate of the speed there. So I know when I sat up there, it didn't even fit. You had to hit 50 before you kind of even drew my attention, because it's a quick road. So I think we have to be cautious of where we go with that in that stretch. When we get closer down to Bell Lane, where it's curvier, the houses are closer together, it's less rural. That would be probably more appropriate to alert 30 miles an hour. I think the cautionary yellow sign would be appropriate to slow people down. That might actually, I'd be interested to see if that does affect people not realizing it's 40 miles an hour. It's actually 30. And because I know that's a frequent area that my officers go, because the speeds are just so great.
Sure. So where do you think, if someone was, if there was a sign, and we can certainly, if we don't know this off the top of the head, we can leave this up if there ends up being a motion, but would there be a certain area on that road that you would suggest that we would alert this is thickly settled 30 miles an hour? Is there a section of that road that without pulling out a tape measure and checking foundation to foundation?
Right at the Dover line where the pumping station driveway is, on the pumping station driveway across from Winding River. And then on the opposing direction going into Dover, I'd start it. There's a bend right as you come around Locust. So maybe right where Locust is, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. Any other members of the committee have a comment or, Mr. Delgado?
So on Charles River Street near Bell Lane, where the houses are closer to one another, I'd like to make a motion that we install a thickly settled advisory sign with a 30-mile-per-hour speed tab somewhere in the area near Bell Lane.
Is that near
Pheasant Landing and between like Whitman and Pheasant Landing is where Bell Lane is on Charles River.
Okay.
It's near where the Algonquin gas easement is.
So Tony has made a motion for a, and would this be both sides, or we'd have to figure that out? We can just say,
Yes, it would be both directions.
Okay. So we have a motion for a thickly settled 30 miles an hour advisory sign, speed tab, and thickly settled sign. Do we have a second on that? For point of discussion, if anyone has any comments.
Second.
Second, Rubenstein. And we have a second, so we have a motion on the table. Ms. Collins?
All right, Mr. Delgado,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath, Lieutenant McGrath.
Aye.
Mr. McCullen,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Great, thank you. We'll see. And then obviously, Lieutenant, if any feedback on once the sign is up, anything you bring back to the committee to see whether this is improving conditions around that area would be appreciated. If you hear anything, as we go forward, because I'd like to hear that certain things that we do actually have impact. Great. Anything else regarding this report that the committee would like to comment on from our past actions or anything going forward?
I'll just make a quick comment. If this is recorded for the Charles River Street traffic study, I think I voiced my opinion in the last meeting, but I think if it's going to be looked back at, I'm not in favor of the no truck restriction on Charles River Street with the amount of vehicles. Again, it's access to South Street, the length of South Street. My belief would be it would typically be landscape vehicles. I don't think we're looking at oversized vehicles. And from an enforcement perspective, that is just the resources of the police department wouldn't be very well dedicated to that particular issue. And I think it potentially could lead to us receiving phone calls of if a truck drives by and in putting us in a situation where our enforcement it creates more issues than it's actually fixing, in my opinion. I just wanted to express that.
Noted. Tony, recognize.
Mr. Chairman, if the town were to submit an application to the state for a truck restriction, it would be denied because we don't have at least 5% trucks. So
that was noted. Sure.
It would be dead on arrival.
Sure, and that was noted too. Agreed on that. We did that study and it did come shy of that 5%. Noted. Any other comments or concerns regarding noting none? We can move to the next agenda item. I don't know, is Mr. Clancy, since you are up first, I don't know if your technical issues have been resolved or whether we need to, I see you coming off.
Yes, I figured it out. I had my 17-year-old daughter figure it out for me.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Clancy, the floor is yours.
I'd like to thank the committee for having me here tonight to listen to my concern. My name's Tom Clancy. I live over at 183 Dedham Avenue, over here in Needham, obviously. It's I believe it's the southeast part of Dedham Ave, or the outbound part of Dedham Ave. And my concern is, I was wondering if there's any way of getting no parking on the section of between Pleasant Street and Dedham Ave, where that's the block that I live in. We're about a little less than 50 yards, I'd say, to the intersection of Webster and Dedham Avenue. And our driveway pulls out, and if there's vehicles parked on that side of the street, we really can't see cars coming. They're trying to beat the light, trying to get there as fast as they can, or they're texting, and we have young drivers that are pulling out, and it's just a concern of ours. I do have some pictures to show you what it's like to pull out there. I don't know if you guys have seen them or what my next step is to do, but I'm asking if there's any way of getting no parking on the outbound side of Dedham Ave between Pleasant and Webster Street.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, Tom?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
So I know exactly where you live. So you're talking about the people who park on the side, halfway on the sidewalk. Is that, because that's the issue in front of your house, is people parking on the sidewalk.
Right. And it's they park there, and us exiting the driveway is the issue.
So I don't know if you have pictures of it, but that is the issue in front of their house, is people actually parking like half up on the sidewalk on 135. Correct.
I'm not sure if I can do this technology. I can do the share screen type of thing and show you what we're dealing with. It's a little, it'll clear it up a little bit more if you'd like.
Please do.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me see if I can do this. I'm getting a message that says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, that is on my end. Let me see if I can fix that. Here we go. All panelists. Try it now.
Okay. Maybe this is it here. Is that working at all?
We can see your mail browser. Yes, we can see the pictures within your Gmail browser. Yes. Yes.
Is that it there?
Yeah, we can see the picture.
Okay, so my driveway, you can see the sign that says 183 with the arrow is going up. And that day there happened to be a vehicle parked at the end of the driveway. And as you're coming down the driveway, the traffic's coming towards you and you have to edge out the traffic signal is about 50 yards behind to your right as you're coming down the driveway. So this is what you're seeing as you're coming out. And Pleasant Street's another block behind that truck. So you never know what's going to be parked out there blocking the vision. And my youngest daughter, 17, just got her license. So it's she almost got hit a couple times out there. And I've gone to the police department. That's how we got to the point where I am now. Lieutenant McGrath suggested I come to the committee. But
Not that it matters, just for context. What's the speed limit on there? Is that still at the 40-mile-an-hour side of?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, what's the? This is Webster.
That's a 30-mile.
And these are vehicles actually parking illegally. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? They're parking on the berm, which is illegal by the town bylaws.
Are you asking me? Or?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm sorry.
Justin, that's kind of a gray area, so it has to be obstructing the sidewalk. So yes and no, but I understand Mr. Clancy's frustration. So two things. I think I know we try and shy away from signage often, but where this is right near a commercial car repair place where there's potential, I know this owner's not a frequent problem, but should it turn over, it's not a bad location to put a 2-hour parking restriction. I also was wondering if engineering would be able to speak to if this, where we're so close to Warren Street, if there's potential that curbing would be put in during that phase, because I think once curbs there, this might rectify a lot of that problem.
I agree.
Are there any comments from the committee? Oh, Mr. DeGaza?
Mr. Chairman, typically the committee deals with neighborhood parking issues by asking the petitioner to create a petition, include all the neighbors, and delineate the area for no parking or 2-hour parking, and then ask them to, sign on in the affirmative on the petition. That's typically how the TMAC has handled it in the past. As far as the curbing issue, I wish Ryan were here because he could talk to that. I know it's limited, in terms of funding availability, and curbing is expensive.
Wait, but Justin, Tony, I think the question was whether this is slated to have that anyway, just like all these areas all over town. Was that not your question, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I didn't ask about the curbing, but it was I'm just looking at the picture. So no, I mean, I just give me a pause. I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts, but.
Well, can I say something while you're
Yes.
doing that? Just knowing this location specifically, I do know this is a generous photo. Half the time right now, they're not on the sidewalk. They're often on the sidewalk. So Lieutenant McGrath, my question too is, I get that there's some, actually, I don't get that there's some gray area, but I hear you that there is gray area. So can there be ticketing when people are there too? So that maybe if they're associated with the businesses, they learn that people are ticketing? I mean, I get 2-hour parking, but 2-hour parking halfway up the sidewalk when that's how kids are also getting down to DeFazio. I mean, that's a, what if kids are on bikes there? I don't understand the gray area there.
Yeah, and I thought that, because I think it said no parking on the berm is like in the bylaws. So I just didn't know where the interpretation was of what is legal and what is not.
I would have to look at the exact language. Again, you have to look at it from so when Mr. Clancy brought this to my attention, and I think he brought it to the police department's attention before, I sent officers out and specifically ticketed this location.
Mhm.
It didn't work, I'm not sure. For a short period of time, I understand there was even potential that an individual was affixing tickets to the windshield to make it look like the officers had already ticketed the vehicle. So that's a whole host of issues. My problem is, so why I say it's a gray area is if you drive all around Needham and you start trying to pick out specific vehicles that are on a berm, we'd be doing that all day. So
I know it's like overnight parking.
be some
I get it.
discretion into what, there's other neighbors, people across the street, that individual has a small driveway. I don't know, the officer who's going to that location isn't going to take a poll of all the neighbors to find out why they're there and what they're doing. So there's some discretion to that.
So is 2-hour parking, why is that better than no parking? I don't know, because if 2-hour parking is, I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking, the original petition said 2-hour parking or no parking, so I just wanted to know why.
No parking would work for us, or 2-hour parking. That gives the officer at least concrete 2-hour mark, they're getting a ticket, or no parking, they're getting a ticket. There's no.
So you want that ambiguity to go away and something that's codified to be able to give the officers the ability to do something. Okay. Seth, and then Tony.
So I have a question for Mr. Clancy, which is your next door neighbor in that direction. Do they have the same problem, and would they be interested in having it addressed as well, do you think?
Honestly, most of the time it's their trucks that are parked out there.
Yeah.
And this situation only affects 3 houses with 2 driveways.
Because it looks like just next to them is a long fence.
Yes.
And I'm
It goes
wondering
out to Pleasant.
if just a limited section of no parking would
Right.
alleviate some of the danger. People could park next to the fence.
Anything would be great. It just distance past the driveway, just so we can see the oncoming traffic. If there's maybe some type of a rule, I don't know how distance wise, how it
There
will
is,
work,
it's 15, is it? It was just changed, I think, by last year or the year before with the select board. There was a change in bylaws to maybe 10 or 15. Tony?
Are you talking about from the driveway?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 feet.
Oh.
5 feet from the edge of the
5
driveway.
feet from the driveway.
All right.
Yeah.
with cars coming at that speed to the intersection when they're trying to beat the red light. It's only a matter of time before something happens. It's been a couple close calls with my daughter already.
I understand. So, but I want to give Tony the ability to speak here.
We were going in the direction that I was I was asking. What is the address of Mr. Clancy's driveway, and what is the address of the area that it is desired to have restricted parking?
My address is 183 Dedham Avenue. The service station beside me is 191. There's a house to my left that's 179, and then there's nothing there till you get to Pleasant Street. There's a large lot, which used to be, I believe, 173 Dedham Avenue, but they changed their address to the Pleasant Street side. So they don't have a driveway on the Dedham Avenue side.
Okay, and you're
183.
Right, I understand. I'm just trying to kind of figure out the area. So it's from Pleasant Street going down past your driveway.
Correct. I'm on the Pleasant Street side, the outbound side of Dedham Avenue, from Dedham Center out heading towards Dedham.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think this should be handled by petition.
Any,
Well, it sounds like the
Comments?
only other petitioner would be the person who
Yeah,
usually
Yeah.
parks there.
And so typically, Mr. Clancy, what Tony is referring to is whenever we've done an action that will basically create a prohibition, whether that be parking or a sign that might be in front of someone's house, you know, a speed sign, et cetera. We want to make sure that, you know, this isn't going to be something that someone's not aware of. And we've been in I shouldn't say we, the town has, you know, been all set on moving across an initiative, and suddenly someone is not necessarily supportive of it, a property owner, and so we've typically said, okay, yes, we'll, and historically have said, in order to do this prohibition, this, you know, whatever, we need to have a kind of a groundswell of support of the neighbors right around that would be impacted. Even if it would be a business, just because we don't want to have one person to say, no, I don't want to go a no parking sign here, or I don't want a no speeding sign here, I want a speed bump here. We want to make sure that there's more than just the one individual. And so that's what he's referring to, you know, that we'd be supportive if this went via petition. It looks like right here, this is probably not one of the individuals. I don't think you're going to get 100% approval, being the fact that if it's their vehicles.
Right.
But nonetheless, are there any other opinions, comments, concerns from the committee with regards to feedback to Mr. Clancy?
I'm just going to say again, I don't think this is a petition situation. I think it's a clear line of sight visibility issue, and they're parking on the sidewalk. So I don't think this is akin to similar situations where you're talking about people on a side street and having visibility issues. I don't think to me, this is no different than on Mark Tree Road, people parking on the curve on the side and acting like that's okay. You know, if that were a recurring problem, which it happens sometimes, but if people were constantly parking there, it doesn't say no parking. But if people were constantly parking there, it would be an accident waiting to happen. And I think that's the situation here. I don't think this is a neighborhood cohesion issue.
I'm assuming that Mr. Clancy's neighbor is not going to be cooperative if.
Correct. That's how we get to the situation where we are. I've asked multiple times, and this is why I got to the situation where I had to come to the committee to see what they suggested, or if they could help me out.
And a question for Lieutenant McGrath is, you know, could an officer basically tell them that technically they could be ticketed for parking there, and you will start ticketing if there are complaints, and you know what happens in that situation?
Yes, absolutely. And it was tried.
It was tried.
It was tried. So that's why I not to air too much neighbor troubles in a public forum, but I understand Mr. Clancy's frustration. I understand that it's not being listened to, but it's also police authority isn't exactly being listened to either. And so I think it's a unique situation. But at the same time, I don't know how much we can continuously tag when it sounds like paying it isn't an issue. So.
But it sounds like it's also because there is no sign that says not to.
Correct.
So if there were a sign, I think to Seth's point before, if there were a specific distance so that it didn't inhibit their parking there altogether, but moved the requirement back, you know, no parking from here to corner, whatever that looks like, or from here to driveway or something like that. that might solve the problem, but not inhibit their ability to park there completely out of the gate.
Yeah, that is what I was thinking. The problem is whether we can technically ask for that.
I mean,
I believe that we've done that before. I think of
I think
there
so
was one
too.
street over by there was one street over by the high school that we did that came forward with the committee.
I agree. I was
that we-
thinking the same one.
And I think if they were taking a right and it was cars taking a right, they wanted to reduce the amount of traffic. Yeah. So, I mean, I think we've done it before, so I don't think there's
Yeah.
an issue with that. It's really the verbiage and you know, but is anyone else have a comment or a motion or a?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So the picture we're looking at presently, I'd say that's 5 feet back from the driveway to the front of that Nissan, and then an additional, the length of a car. So where that second truck is parked, let's call it 20 to 30 feet.
Okay. Yeah.
I motion that we put a no parking sign or no parking signs that would prohibit parking in that general area, giving in a public safety standpoint, the petitioner easier access out of his driveway so that we don't have a traffic collision on a highly traveled roadway.
All right, I second.
Bauer seconds the motion.
I third.
I have a third. Daphne, do we have a two-way roll call?
Right.
And I can't wait to
Okay,
get back
so-
in person so we don't have to do the roll call.
Mr. Delgado,
I'm going to abstain.
Ken McGrath. Lieutenant McGrath,
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Mr. McCollum,
I'm going to say aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to my concerns tonight. I really appreciate it.
We have a good remainder of the evening. And let's see.
Yes, thank you.
You can probably unshare your screen too. Oh, there you go.
Did I do it right?
Yes, you did. And let me pull up. All right, there we go. So the next item, and I believe I saw Morgan Sammet come. Hello, Morgan. And this is signage intersection of Honeywell Street and Hillside Avenue.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Morgan Sammet. My primary residence is 44 Booth Street. And I don't know if it is possible, but I was just wondering, that intersection of Honeywell and Hillside, it's a four-way intersection, but it's a two-way stop for Hillside only. And I've just noticed often that driving up Honeywell, often drivers on Hillside seem to think it's a four-way stop. And so I've noticed multiple times, like as I approach the intersection, drivers will go, and I believe I submitted the complaint on a particular day where I was almost hit by a driver because of that confusion. So I was wondering if there was perhaps any way to get like additional signage indicating that it was a two-way stop, if that's something that would be possible for the committee to do.
Mr. Delgado.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that two-way tabs be added to the stop signs on Hillside at the intersection of Hillside and Honeywell.
There is a motion on the floor for two-way tabs to be put on the stop signs.
I'll second.
And second by Lieutenant McGrath. Daphne, we have a motion on the table. If you could run us through a roll call, please.
Mr. Delgado,
Aye.
Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCullen.
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And by the way, that was my error. I was supposed to ask for any discussion before the motion, but anyways, we all seem to kind of whip through that. There was all eyes. That was my fault for not asking for a discussion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Senna. Without any further ado, let me see here. We will go to multiple monitors. Confuse me sometimes. Item number 6, crosswalk intersection of Great Plain Avenue and Warren Street. Leslie Kerr. Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Kerr, and I live at 853 Great Plain Ave, which is at the intersection of Great Plain and Warren. And I'm here tonight because we have crosswalks on the Warren Street sides of that intersection, but not on Great Plain. And there are no stop signs for the Great Plain drivers. Our house is right next to the YMCA. And then as you go close to the center of town, there's more businesses that you encounter. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in addition, to people going to the businesses. There's the YMCA patrons, there's people just walking through, dogs and with their children. And cars rarely stop. I can show you some pictures, but the nearest crosswalks are at Pickering Street and Great Plain, which is about, I think, 800 feet from us, or rather 600. And then on Webster Ave, where they actually have a stoplight at that intersection. It's about 3 blocks away. So it's just difficult, especially during the busy, during rush hour. There's classes at the Y, and then there's commuters walking to and from. And it just seems like it would make sense, especially when you see some other nearby intersections that do have crosswalks on all 4 parts of the intersection. If I can share my screen, I can illustrate a little of this.
Sure.
Can you see the screen?
No.
No.
Not yet.
No. Okay, hold on. Zoom viewer. Okay. Can you see it now? Yeah.
It's coming up. Yeah. Yes.
All right. So this was actually this afternoon, and this gentleman's he thinks about to cross the road, but it takes him a while because the cars, that one came from, Great Plain and just went right in front of him. It's not till that car leaves till he can cross. Then this is what happened next. There's a woman and her small child hoping to cross, and she just waits and waits. That car left, next car comes by. It's not until it leaves and another one comes by her. She's still standing there waiting to cross. Now, this is the view from Pickering where there is a crosswalk on Great Plain. You can see the steeple in about the center of the photo. That's our intersection. So that's the distance that I had mentioned was approximately 500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
This is the intersection of May and Pickering, and that's further from the traffic zone of Great Plain, and it does have crosswalks on all sides. And this is Webster and Great Plain. So where the crosswalk that you can see right now is on the Great Plain side. It's got crosswalks on all 4, even though it also has a stoplight. So another view of that intersection. That's all I have. So it just, a lot of the neighbors I've spoken to agree. And I don't, some of them said they had thought they would like to bring it up one day and just haven't. And I thought it was time to get that addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. Any members of, when I say members of the town, I usually have Rain as well. Tony or do you have any context on this intersection or anything about this petition from an engineering perspective?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we do have a crosswalk policy.
Mhm.
I doubt that a crosswalk crossing Great Plain Avenue at Warren Street would meet that policy. However, it's certainly, we should take a look at it and see what it says. The only thing I can say is the crosswalks at Pickering and Great Plain are proposed to be upgraded as part of the downtown phase 2 project, which is currently under design. That's the only information I can provide. But I do think it would be worth it to take a look at the policy and see whether this meets that criteria.
And is this the policy that the GPI had proposed as a result of the pedestrian safety audit? Just to, for my own information. Okay.
This is the pedestrian safety audit.
Yep.
And just so the petitioner knows, Tony, the policy looks at what volume of people walking, crossing that intersection, or distance from another crosswalk, or what are the parameters?
It looks at distance from other crosswalks. It looks at the number of pedestrians crossing. It looks at the speed of the traffic on the road at that location. There's several things that it looks at.
And what do they do? Certain traffic studies at certain times of day?
Yeah, they go out and take a look, or we would in this case, because I don't think this is, a major location, especially having considered the downtown phase 2 proposed work. I think that the situation may be improved. One thing you don't want to do is have a crosswalk at Webster, a crosswalk at Warren, a crosswalk at Pickering. You don't want to have a lot of crosswalks going across the main street, simply because vehicle drivers will disrespect the number of crossing locations, and you don't want to have that. You want to try to be judicious as to where you put the crosswalks crossing a main street.
Well, right now, the vehicles are disrespecting me. I had a hard time crossing the street. I think it was the day after I made this petition. They don't slow down. There's kids, there's bikes. We have a lot of traffic coming through on the, especially with weekend classes. It's toddlers going to.
Leslie, is there still a daycare center in that church?
Yes, there is. There is like a little school. There's some church sessions. So I can understand what you're saying, but there's also a lot of foot traffic. And I think it's higher speed at our intersection because there isn't a crosswalk. And I don't have this problem at Pickering Street.
Yeah, a lot of people think that you put in a crosswalk at a particular location to make it a safe place to cross, but that's actually the reverse. Crosswalks do not make it safe. You place crosswalks in areas where you know it's safe. It's the opposite of what people generally tend to think. So if you have sufficient sight distance, if you have sufficient basically safety items in place at a particular location, then the town would indicate to pedestrians, this is a good place for you to cross. And does so by demarking a crosswalk. You understand?
I
It's-
understand it, yeah.
So can I just jump in for a sec? So the only thing is, Tony, we know that the location she's talking about has line of sight and it has all of those factors. So, right, so the question for that location is just distance to other crosswalks. Is that the issue?
And
I don't, there's
crosses
multiple,
potentially.
there's multiple criteria in the crosswalk policy. I would take a look at that. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Lieutenant McGrath?
At this point, I hearing the petitioner and Tony and the vicinity it is in relation to the YMCA, and I think what Tony was started to suggest at the beginning was I make a motion that we study a crosswalk placement at Warren and Great Plain Avenue.
I second the
I
motion.
second that. Oh, okay. Perfect. Rebecca, do you have seconds? Daphne?
Okay.
Oh, first of all, is there any discussion?
Yeah, also, one of the things I want to bring up is, and I'm not sure if Tyler's doing that after each item, when it's being discussed, to check the attendees if there's any raised hands for comments on these items from the public.
Oh, I didn't know.
Thank you for letting me know that, but
Yeah,
there's
because
also,
we've missed that on
Yeah, I didn't, because I.
items and, you know, maybe some of the neighbors were involved.
I will say that in this particular case, there are no members of the public outside of the ones on the panel right now.
All right, Mr. Delgazo,
Thank you.
I,
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCollum,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. So we will obviously go through and look at the Needham's, crosswalk and see if this is something that fits the criteria that was given to us. I was clarifying a little bit with the study that came out of the pedestrian safety audit came up with a clear criteria for discerning whether it would meet a so-called warrant or a so-called, it would pass the bar essentially. So we're going to kind of take this and run that through that criteria.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate it. And I guess my only question is, do they do those studies at different times so that they can understand the, it's a different traffic pattern there, especially with the YMCA attendance?
Sure, and I would argue this is probably the best time right now. But yeah, I'll give Tony. But now that school has started, and I know a lot of studies we pushed off until school has started because of precisely what you're talking about. But Tony, did you want to provide some comment?
you stole my thunder.
So, so I think that's actually what we talked about in the second item, that there are a couple studies that we were pending and waiting for because we didn't want to do anything over the summer.
Okay, but in terms of time of day, how do they
Just to
work?
clarify, the studies go 24/7 for a certain length of time. So
Yes.
they capture peak hours, quiet
Great.
hours.
Great.
Hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I think we have one last item on the agenda. So before we introduce this, we have item number 7, signage intersection of Charles River Street and Bell Lane. Brenna Jones.
Hi, I'm Brenna Jones, my husband Rich.
Hi.
We live at 144 Bell Lane. Perfect timing for us to be at this meeting, given an earlier conversation about the traffic on Charles River. But we're here because it's really difficult and often dangerous trying to turn out of Bell Lane. It's dangerous trying to make a right, but certainly a left-hand turn onto Bell Lane. As Lieutenant McGrath mentioned earlier, it's a curvier part of Charles River, so the line of sight is not great at all. We have some pictures and short video that we can share. but we can't see the cars coming and they can't see us. Additionally, because I think it's a newer street, I don't think traffic is expecting cars to be exiting Bell Lane. And they travel at a high rate of speed. I think average was 42 from the traffic study miles an hour. And so it's dangerous. I mean, there's close calls on a weekly basis. So this is where we're at. Can everybody see our screen?
Yep.
So we're trying to make a left and the car's coming from the Dover side. They don't expect cars. Nobody slows down, nobody pauses. Cars are going over 40 miles an hour and we're inching out trying to make a left-hand turn. Do the video.
Okay.
It's also challenging not just the curb in the road, but the brush and overgrowth on the side of the road. You can't see anything. So this is on Charles River headed towards Bell Lane. And you don't have visibility until you're that close to Bell Lane.
So there's Bell Lane.
And then when you're on Bell Lane and you're trying to exit out, it's like a multi-step, inch forward, inch, crossing your fingers and hoping you're not going to get hit as you're trying to exit. Because you can't see.
I can ask a question. I'm not totally clear where this is.
So we are on, go back to the map. This is Charles River. It's a street past Whitman.
Between Whitman and Pheasant Landing.
Pheasant
Rebecca,
Landing.
basically.
Kind of across from.
Sorry.
Rachel.
Right in the middle of those two, really.
Sorry, so if I'm coming from Central, am I turning right or left?
Left.
Left. So it's heading further into Needham, like coming from Central coming from Needham Center on Central. I'm making a left.
Now you're turning right.
Oh, turning on
Turn
Charles River,
right.
onto Charles River, right, yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Turn
sorry.
right on Charles River.
So heading
I'm sorry.
toward, this is heading toward Dover, and then you make a left onto Bell.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the exact kind of area you guys were talking about earlier in the meeting where traffic is going pretty fast and it's the curvier kind of section of a road and there's just very limited visibility. So I guess our request was, one is, I know the town doesn't love them, but a mirror across from Bell Lane so that we could get some visibility into traffic that's coming on Charles River, and also signage so that cars traveling on Charles River would know that Bell Lane was there and there's cars exiting.
Lieutenant McGrath.
To that topic, I have a quick question. I understand the Algonquin gas project next to you. They've put in some of those, that box you showed, like the wooden box with the plants in it. Is that part of their property, or is that something that the developers of Bell Lane did?
I think that part is the developer of Bell Lane.
Okay.
So that's one piece of it, but even kind of looking past that, it's totally overgrown and branches of trees hanging low, and it just really impacts visibility.
No, I agree. And I've driven through there and I agree with you. My motion for that would be, I know we've done an arrow, curved arrow with a street on the side sign.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we install that before Bell Lane coming from Dover. And to the petitioner, I didn't know if you have contact with the developer. One of my recommendations would be see, I know it's a minimal issue with it, but if you see if they'd be willing to remove that. I know it's decorative in nature, but maybe they didn't realize at the time it was creating
Well, I'm happy to go back to the homeowners association to say it was a recommendation from the town, because that gives us some weight. So I think we can get that done.
I'll do it as a personal recommendation. I'll leave it up to the-
No, I'll just say, we talked at the town meeting and it came up, and I think we can get that done.
Okay.
So Lieutenant McGrath has a motion with regards to a curve, basically a curve indicating the street. I don't know what you actually call it, what the official terminology is. But yes, we all know that's that error, the profile of the road illustrating where the street comes out. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
And we have a second and do we have any
So sorry.
discussion on that from the committee? Mr. Delgado, discussion?
It just so happens that we had a meeting today regarding Bell Lane with the planning board. They're trying to basically finish up the construction of Bell Lane. One of the items that the planning board put as a requirement on the developer were those very trees that we've been talking about by the side of the road, and that they need to be cut back. That was actually a requirement in the approval of the subdivision, and they haven't kept up with them. So
Okay.
that is actually something that the planning board was made aware of, specifically the planning director. There's a number of items that need to be addressed, this being just one of them.
That's great news. I think that will definitely help.
Well,
We'd
if the
still like to put a
developer-
request in for a mirror, which again, understand the town doesn't love them, but we
So
have
let's-
seen some of them around town.
So let's, I know that there's going to be some big comment on those. So let's just, first of all, if there was this motion with regards to a specific sign to indicate the curvature of the road and where the road discharges. We had a second for that. Any other discussion with regards to that specific portion?
Well, I would just question, if I may, Justin, just
Mhm.
step in for 1 second here,
You said-
on the location, more precisely of where that sign would be located.
I would probably leave that up to the highway department to be able to.
Okay, I was
however it
just
falls
curious, make
into
sure
the
it's not in
manual.
front of somebody,
The manual for uniform traffic control devices will have the recommendations for where to kind of put those kind of signs and,
Just-
and.
Okay, I'm just, yeah, you know what I mean.
Tony?
Mr. Chairman, it's actually the engineering division
Oh,
that makes that recommendation as to where the sign goes.
my
And-
apologies to the engineering division.
No problem at all, and the sign should be somewhere between 200 to 300 feet away from the intersection on either side.
Just making sure it was, yeah.
Perfect. So to be consistent with the engineers, director of engineering and engineering departments,
Okay.
yes, 200 to 300 feet, exactly.
All right, so Mr. Delgado,
Aye.
Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCullen,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And now to, I know that there was, if anyone have a comment on the second item, which was, or suggestion that came from the petitioner with regards to a mirror. I know we've historically we don't necessarily have granted those because of issues, but nonetheless, is there anyone who wants to comment on those? Comment. No, and I know that in the past, it has been reported by certain members of the town that they're not allowed, and actually they could be taken down. People, usually residents have put them up. The town doesn't put them up. And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, the town doesn't officially put those up, correct?
That is correct.
And so, and usually if you do see them around town, they've been put up by the residents, but they're not allowed to. And in some cases, they have been removed by the town because of complaints with regards to that.
Got it. So the road mirrors that we see around town.
None of which unless the town wants to, Bob or Tony wants to correct, but I don't believe that those are town installed mirrors.
We were just suggesting it to try to give us some line of sight into traffic coming at us.
Sure. No, I completely understand that. I'm not saying that they don't work. It's just, from an official perspective, but I don't think the town, has been able to do those officially before. Those have been done by the residents themselves. And we're not officially sanctioning that at all. Mr. Delgado.
Mr. Chairman, the town has not installed any mirrors in town for a number of reasons, but that the town does not support the installation of those mirrors.
So we have a sign, and then we also have the what Tony indicated before about the planning board, following up with the homeowners association in regards to non-compliance of the, let's just say, pruning, and then perhaps maybe that box, maybe talk about that could be removed back, maybe even if it was like moved 10 feet back or something like that. I don't know. I didn't see what's behind there, et cetera. But Tony?
Mr. Chairman, if it's the box that I think it is, it's a fence. And inside that fenced-in area are valves, gas valves. So that was the developer's attempt to kind of pretty it up.
Yeah. So that it might not be able to move that. Okay. All right.
I think that's just a planter. I think it's a box on that side that can't be moved.
I see.
So there's a box when you're looking at Bell Lane. There's a box that it's the gas companies on the right hand side, but I think there's a small planter that's just decorative. It's not very big, but it does also impact kind of line of sight. That would probably help a little bit. And then if we can get some of the trees trimmed back, I think that would help.
All right, and that's going to be through the planning board's enforcement of their approval for the subdivision, et cetera. Tony.
Mr. Chairman, the planning director requested a status report, and the assistant town engineer is going to go out, take a look, see what deficient items still exist, and then report back to the planning board.
Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that being said, if I go back to my agenda, I think that concludes this evening. I know we could do does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Oh, excellent. I second that motion to adjourn.
Actually, can I make a comment on the motion to adjourn?
You actually, you know what, I'm supposed to, yes, you may.
I've been derelict, and I think I was assigned the job of setting up the subcommittee to discuss streamlining processes and sharing information better with the public. And I have been derelict in making that happen. So I will commit to making that happen prior to the next meeting.
You know what? I thought it was my fault, but
then it is
but either way, no, and I do remember that. I think I had given that to you. But certainly we'll work on that. That no motion has been nothing has been going on since the last meeting. So.
And just a reminder, it needs to be posted 48 hours.
Yep.
So agenda needs to be prepared beforehand and assume ID and all of that. So
Sure.
There's logistics.
I will consult with you, Daphne.
Well, no, consult with Tyler.
Or with Tyler.
Just because we're just so used to just like back in the olden days.
I know.
Sure. A motion to adjourn is on the table, and I know Lieutenant McGrath wanted to mention something, nothing to do with TMAC, but right after the roll call or the motion.
All right, Mr. Delgado. You don't want.
Was there
It's a
a
motion to
second?
adjourn. I seconded it.
Oh,
He seconded. There's a motion and a second.
aye.
Good, okay. Lieutenant McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. McCullen,
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Ms. Tarantino,
Aye.
Ms. Mullen,
Aye.
Ms. Stein.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Excellent. We are in adjournment, and this says nothing. This is Lieutenant McGrath wanted to just mention something to the group, so it has nothing to do with TMAC. So
I just want to know, Tyler, is this still being recorded or?
You can end the recording.
Yeah.